There is blind justice, and then there is trading justice, so that you can finally afford to get that laser eye surgery. Not only will people find you more attractive once you ditch those old glasses, you'll be able to see your charts better. That's what we call win-win. Speaking of winning, it's time for a little trading justice. Brought to you by TackleTrading.com.
I about played the whole music, the whole clip there, Chi.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's easy to get into that music.
I was head bobbing and, getting back into my old glory days. Once again, every time I just think glory days, man.
What happened to hair metal?
It's going to make a comeback sooner or later. It has to. Everything makes a comeback. Tight pants, long hair, banging your head up and down, having some fun, forgetting about the world. Maybe it's after the next financial crash.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in the cross between hair metal and then into grunge. I was in high school when grunge and Nirvana and those bands hit.
Yeah.
But I'll never get rid of my Bon Jovi T-shirt, I can tell you that. Or AC/DC or any of these guys.
Bon Jovi was the only music concert I went to. I think it might be the only music concert I've ever been to.
Oh my gosh, you need to live, son.
I'm telling you. I tell people that and they're like, "Are you kidding me? That's it?" I'm like, "Yeah." And it was a great concert. I had a lot of fun, but it's never been my thing, so to speak.
Yeah, no, it's hard when you live in, we grew up in a small town. You still live down there. I live up in Salt Lake City. So I get access to all of these venues. I can go a couple times a year to a band I like. But down there, I mean, you basically got local bands in pubs or out of the outdoor concert thing at the 4th of July.
As bands.
They don't really count.
They don't count. Have you heard them?
I do remember, though, this was 1993, I believe. Sheryl Crow, before she hit it big, she came to Price, Utah, and I saw her live over at CEU Auditorium.
Oh, are you kidding me?
No, I saw her before she ever was big, and that's why she's still one of my favorites. But anyway, I could talk music all day. We'll need a separate podcast for music.
Yeah, you're big into music. I mean, you even went the vinyl, right?
Oh, I have a vinyl record player.
Yeah.
It's a 1963 Astrovox or Magnavox Astrovox. It looks like a dresser. Like you could fit all of your clothes in it. It's huge.
It's huge, and it's amazing.
Yeah,
it's got two spinners on it and vinyl. And I'll tell you, those things are cool. I just like them. It's old school. We can't just click on a button. You got to take care of them. But you get into them, and they're pretty cool.
I'll tell you, there is a connection here to trading, Matt. Everybody's got their way of getting their mind in a groove.
Yeah.
For me, I work with music. Like I'll put my earbuds in while I trade or while I work on a project. Even when I'm writing, I'll have something going in the background. I have a friend, and she has an app on her phone she was telling me about that's like the ocean waves and like the air blowing through the trees.
Yeah, my wife makes me play that at nights because she says I snore.
So she doesn't have to listen to you snore.
I have like 3 apps just to, just in case one isn't working. So I know the app.
I think it's important that everybody finds their space and the noises that they want around them that are going to keep them in the right mindset. Whether that's silence, some people like dead silence, and other people want a little distraction. Even every now and then I'll turn on Sports Center, in the background.
Talking about a little distraction, T. Right now I have my laptop up with something on it. I have my iPad up with something on it. On one monitor I have, and this is when I'm trading, I'll have a movie watching. I'm always watching a movie or a TV show or something, and then I'll have Mock Trader up and I'll have Thinkorswim up. I got to have an infinite amount of distractions or I can't focus. I don't. It's crazy, I know, but it's just how I process.
Yeah, but then I know you well enough to know that you also will feel at peace in the mountains by a campfire by yourself.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Every now and then I get to the point where there's so much noise out there that I got to shut it down. Yep. And I get in the camper, drag it up to the mountains, go out there, go fishing, even though I'm a terrible fisherman. But just go out there and just get away, get into nature and just recharge those batteries, and that's kind of how I felt the last week is, it got to, we've been doing so much, with the Trading Justice website, the podcast, and then what we do in terms of teaching people how to trade and my travel. I just felt completely overwhelmed, and I just needed to take a couple days off. And so, I kind of shut it down. And luckily, I didn't go up to the mountains because, we were celebrating the 4th of July and whatnot. But luckily, my phone died. It's just dead, and nobody could contact me, and I still answer my emails and whatnot. But it was actually very satisfying to not have a cell phone for 4 days.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I can, believe me, sometimes I'll just turn it off, but that's awesome. Yeah. And, one thing, it's interesting, this conversation kind of just, organically sprung up, but I've been teaching people for 9 years now. Mm-hmm. And one technique that I never thought of intentionally, but just kind of happened, I would mentor students and they would come to my office, and when you're in a mentoring session, you're sitting there and you've got 8 hours of training, mm-hmm. One-on-one. That's a lot for the brain to process.
It's overwhelming.
And I started to say, I would notice somebody would just start to get a little bit tired, and I'd say, hey, let's get up and let's go for a walk. And I would when you get your legs moving and you get your brain and your senses just to experience something else, even if it's just for a few minutes, it can recharge your batteries like that. And I've incorporated that into my everyday life. Like mm-hmm. every couple hours, even if it's just up and down my street, or around the block, I try to just get outside and move. Because mm-hmm. if you sit and stare at a computer screen as a trader all day long, eventually you're going to start making, worse decisions.
Oh, you want to take a nap. I mean, my goodness, it's overwhelming. And, you and I are a little different than most traders because, a lot of what we do is we do it from home. But at the same time, it's you got to get away and you got to shut it down, because if you sit there and stare at a chart, you're going to find a reason to buy, and you're going to find a reason to sell, and you're going to find a reason to run away.
Well, and I think that businesses around the country know this as well, even outside of trading. It's why all these new office parks, they have like swing sets and parks and, picnic areas and walking paths and, feng shui water flowing.
Did you just say feng shui?
I did.
Oh my goodness.
If you stick somebody in a cube for 8 hours, they're not going to be productive.
I would have slapped you if I was in the house with you.
I'm glad I'm 2 hours away.
Yeah, you're very lucky. But unfortunately for you, I will be up there tomorrow night.
There you go.
So I will remember that. Now, I remember when I first started, after I left Richdad as an employee for Richdad and started teaching for Richdad. I was in my home office, and my wife comes in. She goes, yeah, we got to feng shui this office. And she brought in this lady that she knew, and I don't know, I can't remember her name, but she brought her in and she just assessed all the energy in the room, and she started putting these things here and these things there. And I had my office how I wanted it, right? And she's coming in there and just changing my entire office. And the moment she got done and walked out, guess what I did?
You changed it back.
Of course I did. That's ridiculous.
Have you seen that famous picture of Albert Einstein, like the last picture they took of him at his desk?
Yeah.
And how messy it is?
Oh, it's ridiculous.
It's a disaster, right?
Yeah.
The only problem I have with like the idea behind some of these people that they think they have the answer for everybody. I mean, maybe disorder for some people is better.
Chaos.
And, chaos might actually provide comfort for some, everybody's mind works a little bit differently. And as a trader, you kind of have to figure out where you find your groove, your mojo, your zen, mm-hmm. whatever it is you want to call it. And I think that's really important. For me, I have to get up and move my feet every couple hours or else I'll lose my mind.
Yeah.
For other people, maybe they need complete dead silence, like we said earlier. It changes from person to person.
Well, I agree with that 100%. Everybody's got to find out who they are. But one of our roles as educators and teaching people how to trade is to help them find out who they are. You know what I mean? to help them find their process, their internal process, their trading process, their trading strategies, and tailor trading to who they are, because this marketplace is so in depth and so crazy sometimes that it's without somebody who has been there and done that, it's very difficult to be able to find that yourself. And I got to tell you a story. I was doing a mentorship today online, and we were just working on building cash flow in retirement accounts. And as you know, you're fairly limited in retirement accounts, correct? To the type of strategies you can trade. You really are limited to like covered calls and cash secured naked puts, and in IRAs you can do some credit spreads and whatnot, but at the same time you're fairly limited. And so we were looking at designing how to build cash flow in retirement account, and we started with the covered call. And we went out there and we basically scanned the entire market to find stocks that were trading between $10 and really kind of $90, somewhere in that range, and stocks that had some type of volatility. So we were basically scanning for stocks that had a beta +1, right? So that they move faster than the market. And finally, throughout the initial scan, we went to a website called finviz.com, and we scanned for plus mid-cap stocks. We filtered, stocks that were optionable. We filtered stocks with large volume. We filtered technically to find good, strong, bullish uptrends, like stocks that were above the 20 and the 50 and the 200-day moving average. And then we still, literally, Tim, I'm telling you, there were like 800 stocks that were above the 20, 50, and the 200-day moving average. Just an ungodly number, right? You rarely see that many stocks that are that bullish. And so I was like, oh man, we got to filter this even more. And so we filtered it PE ratios underneath 20. That brought it down to like 400 stocks. And finally we started playing around with the beta number, and we got about 60 stocks that we broke down the entire market to. And we picked the 10 best stocks that we felt were in the best trends. And we put them in Mock Trader. We charted them on the weekly charts, and they were all pretty strong. And then we started assessing, because when you look at, a lot of people don't understand this when they're very new to trading. When you're looking at to buying a stock, you're not just looking at making money on the direction of the stock. You're also looking at making money on the covered call, selling the options, and you're also looking to make money on the dividend. So after that, I had her basically assess that stock and 2 other stocks that were in the same sector that were also performing good. So we analyzed about 30 total covered calls. And guess what the highest ROI on the covered call was? On those 30.
For July or August?
August, 38 days out.
Okay. And you had 30 covered calls?
Uh-huh.
And your scan included beta over 1?
Over 1.
I'm going to guess 5%.
3.1%.
Oh, my.
3.1%. The vast, and there was only like 2 stocks that one was like 3.1% ROI monthly, the other one was like 2.8, then we had a 2.5. The vast majority were 1.3, 1.4, 1.5% ROI. Talk about no volatility in the market. And that's with the VIX jumping up, a dollar today from 10 to somewhere around 11. It's amazing how little we're getting for premiums these days.
Well, the old adage of chasing it down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly the phrasing of how that goes, but the idea that you lose focus on whatever you're doing, and you just, like that movie Up, like Squirrel, the dogs, they would just lose focus on whatever they're doing. The squirrel. New traders do that a lot. The most impressive part about your story, and the volatility thing I do want to talk about in a minute, is that when you're working with a student like this, from an outside perspective as a mentor, we have to develop a process.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to start with an idea. We're going to start a scan. We're going to add a filter. We're going to get it down to a manageable number. Then we're going to run the numbers, and we'll just pick the best one we can pick. Outside of that, that's how you efficiently scan and find trades in the market. In this market, it's really tough because of the volatility to do credits. But the process is the most important part of what you're teaching that student. And I had a student earlier tell me that he spent 3 hours a day scanning for stocks.
Oh, Lord.
And I just said, you're doing it wrong.
You should, honestly speaking, initially when you first start trading, yeah, you're going to scan more than you typically do. But once you understand the art of trading, honestly, Tim, how often do you scan for yourself?
Oh, well, I mean, I scan my watch. It depends on how you define it.
Okay, your watch list is different. Yeah. We all work off our watch list. That's different. But I'm talking about going out to Mock Trader, going to Thinkorswim, going to FinViz, building a scan to scan the markets to find a trade.
Well, I might do it different than you a little bit. I'm willing to take a peek every day just to see if something pops up, but not for long. Sometimes 5 minutes just to go to the volatility scans or to see price action to see if that something is in the news that day.
Yeah.
But a real deep, scan where I'm trying to find bullish stocks, I mean, maybe 2 or 3 times a week. I don't know. Yeah. Not as much as people might think. Because when you trade consistently and your routine is set and you're established, you just come in every day to, and you're running your business.
Yeah.
You don't have to reinvent it every day.
Yeah, I don't scan every day. I'd probably say I scan once a week on Sundays. I'll scan the markets to find what's setting up that week, kind of building an expectation for that. Outside of that, I primarily work off a watch list, both the credit watch list that I love, also some bullish and bearish watch lists. So, when I'm scanning, like every Sunday night, in preparation for the market that week, I like to build an expectation. Where is the market going to go this week? And I base that both on where the market is technically speaking. Is it overextended at resistance areas? Is it down at support areas? Is it breaking out of particular patterns? How much economic events are we going to have? How much earnings events? Are we going to expect a volatile week? Not a volatile week? Those types of things. And, last night in the market, basically, I was just doing my process, and it typically takes me about 20 to 30 minutes. And basically, kind of building that expectation for the week. I felt we were going to have some downward movement this week, and not anything dramatic. And not anything based on, important news out there. I thought initially coming into the week we were going to see a little bit of profit taking just because there was nothing out there. There was nothing out there economically. There was nothing out there earnings-based until after Tuesday. And so kind of just my expectation coming into earnings was that people were going to take a little bit of profit. And you know what? Today that's what we saw. We saw in the marketplace people locked in a little bit of profit, but it was not based on any amount of conviction, right? I mean, volume was light for the most part.
Well, let me read the percentages to you. And percentages do matter to me. Because as a trader, I know what a volatile market really does look like.
It doesn't look like less than 1%, I'll tell you that.
No, it doesn't. And when you have the Dow down 0.26% today, the NASDAQ 0.77% today, and the S&P down 0.39%, that's not a lot of conviction.
No, that's nothing. On low volume, I mean... there was no conviction behind that. The only major index that actually got a pounding today was the Russell 2000, and it got a little bit of it got whacked a little bit. It was like what was it, about 1.6%?
Yeah, let me take a look. I mean, it was down net 21, open. Yeah, it took the biggest hit. Yeah. And price action through the day, it just kept fading. Yeah. The other ones kind of held up a little bit better. It just took a bigger hit. So small caps, yeah. Small caps
typically will move a little faster, but also, I mean, the Russell's at a very important resistance level as well, versus the other indexes that are all well above resistance levels. So that might have played a role in it with not only people locking in profit on IWM and the Russell itself, but also people, entering into directional positions at resistance.
Mm-hmm. Well, and let's call it like it is. I mean, earnings season is coming up on us, and institutions have made a lot of money. You just finished a quarter up, last week on Monday, the first quarter. Mm-hmm. I'm sure some of these big players have been wanting to lock in profits, and so it isn't surprising. I had a different expectation coming into the week a little bit. I had the same assessment you did, because I stared at the economic calendar last night, and I asked myself, what is important this week? And I couldn't think of a thing. besides Alcoa earnings and Wells Fargo earnings.
Alcoa on Tuesday, Wells Fargo on Friday, and then you got the Fed minutes on Wednesday. That's
well, and
really
I thought about the minutes thing, but I mean, when was the last time a Fed minutes meeting had an impact where it caused like a 2% move in a market?
It's been a long time.
A long time.
Yeah, it's been a long time. And when was the last time the Fed announcement has? You know, we got to go all the way back to December for that.
Yeah.
So it's just you got to give the Fed credit. We've said this before on other podcasts. The Fed gave us a blueprint in their December 2013 meeting. They were going to start tapering by $10 billion every time they met. They've been consistent with that. The only thing they weren't consistent on is when they're going to start raising interest rates. And Yellen mistakenly did an anti-Fed in her first meeting in March and said about 6 months after they came out of the market. And so, unless they say something different, which they haven't said in 6 months, it's not really going to have an impact. We know what they've been saying. They've been consistent with that. The only thing I'm looking forward to in the minutes this time is if the Fed, in their actual meeting minutes, if they talk about when they're going to start unwinding their balance sheet, number one, and if they have any type of time frame for a raising of the interest rates. In fact, Tim, I just saw Goldman Sachs revised their expectations, and their expectation was the Fed was going to raise interest rates coming in the first quarter of 2016, and they actually revised that to the third quarter of 2015. I actually think it's going to be sooner than that. I think somewhere in the second quarter, coming into the third quarter, I think the Fed will start to increase interest rates because I think they have to.
Well, you want my reaction to that is that the market will demand it.
It has to.
The market will demand it. The Fed cannot keep them here forever because banks don't want it. What's been happening is that these big institutions have been rebalancing their sheets now for a couple of years. What it really is, Matt, is it's a shell game. They're allowing the big players, the too big to fail guys, to move their money around, rebalance their sheets so that they don't have everything tied up into these low rates, free up some cash. Then they'll let rates go back up so that they can use that cash to get into better rates. It is such a such a screwed up system.
It's true, but the reality is they just have to raise them. And the $64,000 question is, how does the market respond when interest rates start rising? How does the market respond in the bond market when interest rates start rising after interest rates have been so low for so long? That's going to impact all those bond traders.
It's so long. It's so far away from now. I mean, I'm more I think the market would probably flatten and have more periods of volatility is what would happen. Mm-hmm. I think the hope from the Federal Reserve is to have a Japanese economy situation to where
two decades of stagnation. I thought we just had that.
Well, I think they're just hoping for a non-crash. They've brought prices back up. They just want to have people in the labor force, and there's so many politics that go into this as well. These governors have to abide by.
Yeah, let's talk about the labor situation right now. We just had an unemployment report last Thursday. It reported that 288,000 new jobs were created. And on the surface, a very, very good report. Unemployment rate fell to 6.1. It's still above the 6 threshold that the Fed has been talking about for 4 years now. But if you actually look at the Labor Department number, a lot of those jobs were created by part-time employment, either forced or chosen, but it's still a lot of it is part-time employment. The average work week is still only about 34 hours in the marketplace right now. And, we Americans, we like to think of the 40-hour work week, right? Because that's what we were born on. That's what we were raised on. We only work an average of 34 hours a week right now in the marketplace. So I don't know how well that unemployment report actually was. So I saw an interesting article that basically said because of the good unemployment number, the Fed is now going to be forced to even act sooner than they were planning on to. And I don't think that's how the Fed is going to see that report. I don't think that's how they're going to see it in any capacity, because I don't personally see that report as being that good.
No, I don't think it's good. And I think anybody who understands how they compile these statistics know that it's not a reflection of strength. It's just a reflection of a statistical change in the way that they measure it. And based on those measurements, that's why it is where it is. I think even the Fed acknowledges that. That's why when they had their target range at 6.5%, once it got there, they're like, yeah, we said that, but we'll take it back. You know,
we've been saying that for a long time, but you know what? We might need to revise that given the current market data. But you know what? We can talk about the Fed all day long. I want to talk about a couple stocks in the news, Tim.
No, I got one point on this.
All right, go ahead.
I think it's the new normal for a lot of people, Matt, which is it's not inspiring to me. Mm-hmm. I look around at friends I had from college or whatever it is, and they don't expect a pay raise. They don't demand more from their employer. They don't bring more productivity to work all the time. And that's not everybody, and I'm not trying to drag anybody down, but I'm seeing more people accept what I would call the new normal. They just expect that, you're only going to give me 34 hours and no benefits. That's just what companies do. So I'll just take it. That's fine.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, it is the new normal because everybody's doing it. And so you can't expect it anywhere. And it's a trend that we've been seeing develop for the last 5 years in the labor market. And I don't think that's going to change. It's the way corporations have started to save money without a reduction in labor force is by cutting defined benefits, both in terms of a 401k savings plan and also in terms of healthcare benefits as well. That's why you're seeing such a dramatic increase in part-time employment. I mean, coming out of this last unemployment report, you had like a reduction of 550,000 full-time jobs, Tim. A reduction of 550,000 full-time jobs. You had an increase of about 800,000 part-time jobs. And that's where you get a lot of the 288,000 new jobs created. But it's a reduction in full-time employment versus an increase in part-time employment, and I just don't see that as healthy for the economy.
Well, it's healthy for our listeners to recognize that these are the trends. You got a big employer, you might think you're invincible, you're not.
Well,
okay, you have to take control of your own stability in your own future. Because these companies are changing, and it's been this way for a long time. Mm-hmm. You've heard people, it's just more dramatic now, in my opinion. You just don't have the same labor market that we used to have, and I don't think you ever will see it again because just access to labor is different. Even the way we hire people is different. And so I don't know if it will completely ever revert back.
Well, you said something about control there that I want to talk about for a second, because both of us are speakers for Richdad Education, and Robert Kiyosaki is obviously a part of that. Robert wrote a book called Richdad, Poor Dad. He's also written numerous other books, The Prophecy, and he also wrote Richdad, Poor Dad, Cash Flow Quadrant. Just some amazing, amazing books. If any of our listeners have not picked up Richdad, Poor Dad, and my personal favorite, Cash Flow Quadrant, I would strongly recommend it, because what Robert talks about is exactly what you just said, Tim, about our listeners having, if you have that nice little corporation, that corporate job that you feel safe and secure, it's in the eye of the beholder. And anybody who has ever sat in a boardroom that has talked about layoffs and a reduction in workforce knows exactly that there is no security, regardless if you've been working at that employer for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, because it's just a numbers game at that point. But he talks about in terms of the cash flow quadrant, where you have your employees on the left-hand side and your self-employed on the left-hand side. You have your investors and the business owners on the right-hand side. And it doesn't mean that one quadrant is worse than the other. It's just how you define it. And how do you personally define your cash flow? Is a majority of your cash flow coming as an employer? Well, if that's the case, then you don't have safety. You don't have security. You don't have control, because that can be taken away from you in very, very quickly. If you're a self-employed business owner, you got to ask yourself, why is your business not a true business? Why is it that you're working 70 hours a week, managing your business? And a lot of that has to do with our own personal mindset. And I always think about our father, Tim, a great man, had 3 businesses. And the one thing that I personally feel that has held him back from turning businesses into, something greater than that is the mindset of nobody can do it better than me. But nobody can swing that hammer better than him. Nobody can do taxes better than him. And both of us know We built those houses, Tim. People can build a house better than the justice client can build a house. You know, and the difference between being a self-employed and a business owner is can you walk away from your business? Can you walk away from a self-employed business and it still maintain cash flow without 6 months, a year from now? And if it can't, you're not a business owner. You're a self-employed business owner, and there's a substantial difference to that. And I always like to think of Henry Ford in that capacity. Henry Ford was not the smartest man in the room, self-described not the smartest man in the room. He didn't invent the car, the truck. He invented the assembly line, and then he hired people to run his business. And that's what successful people do. They create business. They create they process, and then they hire people, qualified people, to run their business so that they can go and create more businesses. And I think that's one thing that held our father back from not only being as successful as he could have been.
Well, first of all, Henry Ford was a kook and a narcissist. So
awesome.
he was very obviously one of the most successful people. And I actually there's a tie-in. If you and I won't go off on that. Actually, I want
to hear the narcissist part of this.
Well, I want you to look up the definition. I can't remember. I think it's called like DMV4. I have like 3 or 4 friends who were sociology majors, are now therapists, and they have this thing they do in therapy. They call like I don't even know what it is, but they have like official definitions of different disorders.
Yeah.
And narcissism disorder has like 9 different things that can define you as a narcissist. And if you have, and it says in the manual, if you have 5 or more of these traits at an extreme, you are by definition a narcissist. And they estimate that 1% of the population has narcissism disorder, whatever they call it. You follow us so far?
No, I am. I would just like to know what those 9 things are, because I'm willing to bet that it's higher than 1%.
Well, it just depends on how extreme. We all have characteristics, of probably all 9 of them in some degree. Mm-hmm. But like a true narcissist, I mean, it's extreme. Like it is like that's a predominant characteristic of their personality. So like if you read them out, in fact, I was reading a book last night. It was put me to sleep. That's what I do to go to bed lately. I've been trying to read, and I'll alternate between fiction and nonfiction. And this one was a nonfiction one. It was about religion, and the guy just for some reason brought up narcissism.
Well, because I was thinking the exact same thing, just barely. How in the world did we get from cash flow quadrant, Robert Kiyosaki, to Henry Ford being a narcissist?
Well, because most successful people, because what he said is that most religious leaders are mostly narcissistic. And actually, a lot of the investors actually have a lot of narcissistic characteristics as well. You may need to cut this out of the podcast later, but I'm still going to go with it. But
I'm not cutting anything out. That's not what I do. I'm not an editor. We record.
I got it right here. I'm good old Google. I wasn't prepared to talk about this. I don't necessarily
think anybody was prepared to talk about this or hear about this. But let's go with it. Let's see where you go with this. I want to see how you climb out of this rabbit hole you've dug for yourself.
Oh, I'm trying to. Here are 7 of the symptoms. They say narcissistic personality disorder is estimated to be in 1% of the population. The symptoms of the disorder by the DSM, they've taken it down from 9 to 7. So they say if you have 5 of these 7,
Gotcha.
Is what I'm getting on Wikipedia, they expect to be recognized as superior and special without superior accomplishments. They expect constant attention, admiration, and positive reinforcement from others. This is Henry Ford, by the way. This is where we got to narcissism, because I watched a documentary on Henry Ford. He was a true narcissist. He tried to create his own colony, Matt. He had his own laws and rules, and he expected.
Are you telling me if you had the ability financially to create your own colony, you wouldn't?
Hey, I would buy an island, but that doesn't mean I'm it's Lord of the Flies on my island.
All right, we're through 2. What's number 3?
Envies others and believes others envy him or her.
Okay.
Okay. Is preoccupied with thoughts and fantasies of great success, enormous attractiveness, power, or intelligence. Now, I think we all are preoccupied with that at times.
I was going to say
right?
that. Yeah.
I think we all have envied others and think others envy them.
I think it's a normal trait.
Yeah.
Okay.
This next one lacks the ability to empathize with the feelings or desires of others. And as I read up on it, that's probably the one thing that has to be there to have this disorder.
Yeah.
To call it actual narcissism is you have to lack empathy. And I don't think I know many people who lack at least some level of empathy.
I think I only know a couple.
Is arrogant in attitudes and behavior. We've all been arrogant at times. Hopefully we try, as you get older, you recognize it and self-correct your behavior, but has expectations of special treatment that are unrealistic.
Okay.
Now, those are the 7 that they listed here on the wiki. In my book, there were 9, but that's basically the idea. Henry Ford hit every one of those on the head, and he was one of the most successful business people we've ever seen.
It's true.
The guy who created, what's that new religion, Scientology?
I don't know his name.
I don't know his name either.
He has to be it.
Absolutely a narcissist.
Yeah.
I mean, he had a way of reinventing, how to control people. He started a new religion when in the age of the digital era. Just think about that for a minute.
That's crazy.
I guess the reason it struck me when you're talking about Henry Ford is that success comes in a lot of different ways. You were talking about the quadrant earlier. Mm-hmm. The employee, the business owner, the self-employed, the investor. Many of the most successful, might be that investor. And you might have to have such a drive to where you're willing to work harder than anybody out there to be the biggest, baddest guy on the street.
Oh, it's the most successful people are on the right-hand side of the equation, the business owners and the investors out there. When you talk about the amount of wealth in the world, 95% of the wealth in the world is controlled by 5% of the populace, and the 5% of that populace lives on the business and the investing side of the quadrant. 95% of the population are employees or self-employees, and they control 5% of the total amount of money in the world, and that should tell you something. If and again, it doesn't mean you can't make $1 million and have a great life in any one quadrant. And that's what Robert says. That being an employee is not a bad thing. And, like I like to say at my workshops, having a job is not a bad thing, guys. Having a job is a good thing in this economy. But at the same time, you need to diversify. You need to get out there and get money, get cash flowing in multiple different quadrants. And if you ever want to meet your financial dreams, your financial goals, you have to do it on the investing side. I was talking to a group of traders in a trading lab today, and I was talking to them about my own personal journey as a trader and how that kind of went. And I said, at some point in my life, I went to law school, I was traditionally educated, graduated law school in 2004, but Tim, I just wanted no part of being a lawyer. I just honestly, going to that last year and a half of law school, and it wasn't about the people, it wasn't about the rule of law, it wasn't about anything like that. I didn't want to work 70, 80 hours a week to for the next 10 years before I became a partner and whatnot. I wanted something different for myself, and I wanted something different for my young family. Uh-huh. And I feel very fortunate in my life that in 2005 you and I both found what has become Richdad Education, and it's changed both of our lives to the better. And that doesn't mean we've met our goals, because I'll tell you right now, when I meet my financial goal, I'm getting that beach, and I am not ever coming out, and you will not have a cell phone. Nobody will get a hold of me.
Who's the magician? The most famous. He has a big show in Vegas. Like, he's the magician right now. I don't
follow that stuff, so I don't know.
He owns an island, Matt.
I don't doubt that. That would be cool.
Like, in the Caribbean, he has done so many shows in Vegas. God, I can't even. It'll come to me. It's one of those things where it doesn't click right away. Literally owns an island. And going back to this whole conversation, your journey is interesting, because if you really label it, you went from student to self-employed. Mm-hmm. Pretty much. And that's a big jump. Not everybody does that.
No, in looking at it, and honestly, when I graduated law school, I didn't know what I was going to do. I thought maybe I was going to go move back home and run Dad's construction company, or start my own construction company, because that's what I had a lot of experience in growing up. And you can create massive businesses in construction, right? And in real estate and whatnot. And I don't know where that journey would have taken me. I don't think I would have ever ended up to the same capacity Dad did, because I always had bigger dreams than that, and I wasn't stuck to Emory County the way he was his whole life. So that could have been a journey, going to be a lawyer I just didn't want to be a part of. And in 2005, a year after I graduated, I made the decision that it's time to be a self-employed business owner and start a business. And now now the mindset is, not create one business, but let's create a lot of businesses, and in the truest shape of the form of business, where you create it, teach it to others run it, type of scenario. And I'll tell you right now, that is a beautiful thing, because it's something that I just love doing. I love creating new things. I love creating this Trading Justice website and creating the content and showing people the proper way to invest their money and trade their money.
Well, but part of that was that we were, from a very young age, we were shown that owning businesses can be a smart thing. And
absolutely.
we saw Dad have success, and he would work hard. So we had that instilled in us at a young age. Well, but one of the reasons why it's taken us time, I think, to transition our mindset from self-employed to investor is that we weren't shown that.
No, we didn't know anything about it. And honestly speaking, and this is what I'll tell you, and I've said this many times over the last few years, after I truly did shift my mindset. It took me about 7 years, Tim, to really shift from that self-employed type of a mindset to a business owner mindset. But I'll tell you, Richdad is what did it for me. Because, we came from the trading aspect of everything. We came from the education aspect and teaching people how to trade. Here's your rule. Here's your technical setup. Here's how you do it. Here's how you place an order. Here's where you're going to target, teaching people how to actually do it, But it was Richdad. It was Robert Kiyosaki who really shifted my mindset and delving into his works and his life and learning from his example of kind of what some of the things that he did. And honestly speaking, I knew for a fact about 2-3 years ago that I was never going to be the individual that I could be if I didn't shift my mindset. And, reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad and Cash Flow Quadrant, I probably shifted before you did, because I remember just even, a couple of years ago talking to you about, hey, listen, it's you got to have the content, obviously, but you also have to have that mindset, the proper mindset, that business-related mindset, and the discipline to go out there and do it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You did shift before I did. You have made a big influence or a big impact on the way that my mind, thinks about opportunity and the world and money. And this was one of the original points of bringing up the cash flow quadrant thing and, going from self-employed to business owner to investor. It's not always linear. Some people can jump a step. But one of my favorite things to see is when somebody goes from being an employee to starting that first business. It might be a side business. It might be something they just do on the weekends.
Yeah.
It might be they might carve things out of the wood in their garage. They might go out and yard sell. I don't know, whatever it is. They might start a snow shack down the road. And this is why I love watching success. I like being around successful people.
It gets in you, and all of a sudden it just changes the way you think. My wife very well, Tim, and she is an amazing person, but she is not a business-minded individual. Correct? She is a consumer through and through. But I will tell you this: she wanted to buy a dog the other day. It was about 6 weeks ago. She wanted to buy a dog. And in purchasing that dog, it was an expensive dog because it came from a like it has a lineage of, show dogs and this and this and this. It was like a $2,500, $3,000 dog, right? And I was just so adamantly opposed to it. Just couldn't stand it, hated it, said no, 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 no. And you know what she said to me to convince me to buy that dog? She said, Matt, why is it that when you want to start a business, you can do it in any capacity and just go do it, but when I want to start a business, because she's going to breed the dog, right, and sell it. And so I try to start a business, and you say no. And what am I going to say to that?
You're going to say, honey, when can we go pick up the dog?
That's exactly what I said, even though I completely disagreed and think it's going to fail as a business. It doesn't matter, because if you're not failing, you're not trying. And just to see that subtle shift in her mindset from, even if it was just to convince me, a little manipulation, so to speak, but just to see that little subtle shift in her mindset, I was just so amazed by that, and it was encouraging.
I'll tell you, that's so... exactly. You have to encourage that kind of thinking. I mean, even in subtle ways. We have a 17-year-old nephew, and he's kind of a lazy kid, and he's well provided for. Mm-hmm. And I was talking to his grandma on, his, not our mom, but his other grandma, and she was saying, well, we got to get him a job. And I said, well, why don't we try to find other ways to get him to make some money, And I wasn't being overt about it too much. I'm like, well, why don't we see if we can, get him a lawnmower. We'll go around. We'll encourage him to start mowing lawns 2 days a week, for money. Because even at a young age, I think that you want to encourage, this is so cliche, but even the idea of the lemonade stand. Having your kid out there.
5-year-old is so cute and amazing, but it's also a mindset.
Every time, Matt, in my neighborhood, if a kid is out with a table selling something, I stop.
You have to stop.
Every time.
You have to.
And it's not just to be, just because I want to, say, oh, you're so cute, nice to see you, tell your mom hi. It's because I love seeing young people develop a proper mindset about money.
Oh, I agree 100%, Tim. My 12-year-old son, I'm teaching him how to trade and whatnot, and he's also working for the old man, not every day, but 3-4 hours a day. And I did the same thing with him. I said, Tan, listen, one thing that you could do is you could start dominating the landscaping business here in Huntington, Utah. You could start doing the lawnmower and all of that stuff. I'll create you a nice little website where you can, people could just log in and do this. And he's so into it, Tim, and we're just kind of in the planning stages, and this probably won't actually start until next year, but it's just getting into that mindset, just instilling it. And we as parents, I think we have a responsibility to teach our children proper ways of generating money, proper mindset. Because like your nephew's grandmother, go get a job, go get a job, go get a job, go get a job. It's so cliche, go get a job, because you're going to get security and safety, and you're going to get benefits and healthcare and all this stuff. And it's just that mindset that is so prevalent in our society. But Tim, our economy isn't built off the hard work of employees. Our economy, our capitalistic society is built off small businesses. It's built off business ownership. It's built off that. And, I would love everybody to go out there and create a business, and everybody be widely successful in creating that business. Because if everybody goes out and creates a business and is successful in business, guess what they're going to do? They're going to hire people to, work their business, and it's going to help the economy, and it's going to help us thrive. And we're starting to see a reduction in that. We're starting to see a labor force that is so reliant on just one side of the quadrant, and that is the employee side of the quadrant. It reminds me of a story that Robert tells in Cash Flow Quadrant, where he's talking about back in, I believe it was 1983, him and Kim Kiyosaki were actually homeless, living out of a car for a couple weeks before a couple of their friends took them in. And Robert had two dads. He had a rich dad and a poor dad. And Robert's rich dad was one of the wealthiest real estate investors and developers in Hawaii. And Robert's poor dad was his real father, who basically was a very successful individual in his own right. He was the Secretary of Education for Hawaii, for crying out loud. Highly intelligent, highly educated, amazing individual. And his poor dad taught him, go get a job, get some education, get safety and security. And Robert's rich dad taught him how to invest and taught him how to build businesses and taught him how to cash flow. And in 1983, when Robert and Kim were homeless and living out of a car and then eventually lived with a couple friends for a year, their friends kept telling them, go get a job. You guys are amazing people. You're smart people. You're educated people. Go get a job. And Robert says, it wasn't that he wasn't tempted, because he said in the book that he was very, very tempted to go get a job, but he knew if he did, he would be stuck. He knew if he did, a year would turn into 2 and 2 into 10, and all of a sudden you look back and you ask your what ifs. And Robert and Kim stood strong, and they continued to seek investment opportunities. And within 3 or 4 years from that, they made their first $1 million, Tim. And 4 years from that, in the early 1990s, they were out of the rat race for good. And what that meant to Robert and Kim Kiyosaki is they never had to work a day in their life again. And I'll tell you right now, in getting to know Robert and Kim from afar to a certain extent, but really getting to know their mindset through, Richdad and Richdad education, it's one that I just absolutely cherish, because even though they were out of the rat race in the early 1990s, Robert and Kim Kiyosaki travel the world teaching people how to invest. Robert and Kim Kiyosaki still build businesses, and that is so enlightening and so inspiring to see two individuals come from where they came from, and through their hard work, dedication, find financial freedom and financial success, and then try to impart it on the masses. And that's really the motto of Richdad education. And Richdad is to educate the masses, because we don't do it in our public school education system. And that goes back to what I said originally. We have a responsibility as parents to teach our kids proper investing, proper education from a financial literacy standpoint, because the sad reality, Tim, is we live in a financially illiterate society. And I see it every day, especially with all this, with the Trading Justice website and whatnot. We have a lot of people we know that we grew up with. They go to the website and like, Matt, I don't understand a word you're saying there. And I tell them the same thing. I said, you know what, guys, back in 2005, I didn't either. If you want it, you can get it.
Well, this whole conversation I'm loving, by the way, and I'll tell you, it just reminded me of another story. My brother-in-law, he just he went out. He was going to be a salesman, selling security systems.
Oh yeah, every kid's got to do that one.
He failed.
Oh, of course he did.
I've known a few people who did really well with it, but a lot of people fail at doing that, and that's okay. Failure, you can learn and grow from failure.
Didn't Davey do that 1 year?
Mikey did. Tried it, yeah.
That's right.
I mean, everybody I know, a lot of people I know tried it here or there. Go out and knock doors when they're in their 20s and try to sell stuff. Yeah. But he failed miserably, and then he's coming back, and he's got his tail between his legs. He just celebrated his 1 year anniversary. He's got all the support system in the world, so he could do anything with his time. It's not like he has to make the rent or else he's going to be at the homeless shelter.
Yeah.
He's got all the support, all the time in the world, but we're all pretty motivated, successful people as well, all of his support systems, so we're not going to let him or even encourage him just to be a lazy bum, and I don't think he wants to. And they were sitting around the dinner table, and you ever been on the golf course with a guy who is constantly telling you what you should fix?
Oh, yeah, that guy sucks.
That's annoying.
Yeah.
Shut up. As much as I want to chime in, I have the ability to recognize maybe he's getting too much advice. Mm-hmm. So we're sitting around the dinner table, and everybody's telling him, well, go do this or go do that. 9 different examples of they're hiring down here, or maybe you can go to school and rack up another $50,000 of debt and go get your master's degree, even though you've already been in school for 5 years. Maybe you could do this, and whatever he wants to choose, I'll support. I love him. He's my brother-in-law. But the next day I called him and I said, Zach, you know what? Do what you're passionate about. And I asked him, I said, what do you love doing? He said, well, my favorite thing in the world is smoking pulled pork and making pulled pork sandwiches.
Become a butcher.
No, not a butcher. I said, why don't we make a little pulled pork stand in a food truck, and we can go to all the fairs. I know guys who make a lot of money doing that, Zach, and you could even eventually have somebody run it for you. I mean, you could brand it. Why don't you drop a business plan? And this was just recent, so nothing's in motion yet, but he loved it.
Well, honestly, Tim, you bring up such a good point, because if you're going to start a business, don't start a business because you think it's going to make money. Start a business because you love doing it. And if you love doing it, you're going to do it very hard, and you're going to work hard for it, and you're going to have a passion for it. And then more than likely, it will start cash flowing because of your dedication, your discipline, your knowledge, and your hard work.
And the one thing you want to be cautious about is going back to the original catalyst to this conversation. You don't want to be stuck as self-employed forever.
No. Eventually, you want to get to the point where other people are doing it, and you're living the life that you want to live. And I got asked the question just the other day, Tim, in terms of the building the Trading Justice website and all the content. And basically, this guy says, "Hey, Matt, listen, you must be spending 24 hours a day doing this." And I said, "You know what? It's not 24 hours a day, but it's quite a bit." And but you know what, T? I love doing it. I was reading your newsletter last night after you posted it, and it was a fantastic newsletter. And creating the videos, we love creating the videos, and we want and as Andrew Cameron and I were talking about that on the podcast last time. As a teacher, people don't become teachers just because they want to teach. They love teaching other people how to successfully do something. And so, but eventually, we want to get to the point where, Trading Justice is a self-sufficient, vehicle to where, we can enjoy just, doing content and not all the other stuff to it.
You know what I would love long term is to see it become community driven.
Oh, absolutely.
Where the people who listen to these podcasts, and are traders themselves and have been doing this, because this is all a shared experience, life in general. I don't want to wax philosophical too much, but I'm not ashamed of doing that. I like talking about the deep conversations. Oh, yeah. It's all a shared experience. Whether you're brand new or whether you are the 30-year veteran, you have something to bring to a conversation.
Oh, absolutely.
And if our users, want to post in our forums and put up videos, and the more interaction. Do you remember when you're a kid and you go to that like 6th grade, 8th grade school dance?
Yeah.
And all the boys are on one side and all the girls are on one side.
Oh, yeah.
And kids love to dance, but we're all just like sitting there.
We're all nervous. We don't want to do the first thing, because if we do it, we might look stupid. And, honestly, we talk about it doing as kids, Tim, but how many labs and classes have you taught over the course of the last 9 years that adults behave the exact same way?
That's why I bring it up.
Yeah.
Participation breeds participation. Positive energy breeds positive energy. If we're all there to help and to contribute, and we're willing to throw our hat in the ring, I can't tell you the number of times I've had to encourage a beginner to let them know, listen, most of the other traders that are learning this stuff are at your level, and they think, well, no, nobody could be at as low of a level as I am. Hey, I'm brand new.
At some point, we were at that level, right?
Everyone has to start there.
Yep.
And the thing about that is, because it's a shared experience, when you're brand new, those of us who've been through that, we want to help you, because we know what it was like to be brand new. You know?
Absolutely. And also, when it comes to interaction and whatnot, you got to get out of your shell. And I'll tell you, some of the best people, some of the best traders that started off as students and whatnot that I know are all people that are the most interactive. They're not shy about asking questions. They're not shy about posting content. They're not shy about emailing you. Because the reality, guys, is, and this is something we all believe in, we live in a financially illiterate society. And when you don't know something, it's because nobody's ever taught it to you. And that's not a fault of us, right, as an individual. If I just don't know something exists, I don't know it exists. How could I ever know about shorting a stock if nobody ever taught me or told me about what this concept is? And so, and what I'm getting at, guys, is when it comes to participation questions, posting content, whatnot, don't be shy about it. Ask away. There is absolutely no dumb question. And we all know the cliche. The only dumb question is the one you don't ask, guys. And that's one of the reasons why we created Trading Justice, is to give people an avenue, people who desired financial literacy and financial success, is to give them an avenue to where they could start learning about trading and start learning about what these concepts are and start changing their lives from a financial standpoint. And we're just at the very beginning of it all, guys. Where we have what we have planned coming up in terms of the interaction, in terms of the social experience, it's going to be off the charts, and I think it's going to be something that not only we can be very, very proud of, but that will help change the lives of the people that are members of it.
Well, and it's one of the reasons why we're also building different forms of content. I love podcasts. You and I do. That's why we love putting this one together. And this is one of the coolest things for me. I could just do this every day. Because that's one of the ways I consume content, is I like to consume it through my phone with my earbuds in while I'm out and about doing stuff.
Yep.
Other people want to sit down and watch videos. Some people like to read, like maybe when they're on the train or something. Guys, if you have any suggestions or requests, this is a new journey, and it's a new idea for us to build this site. We would love to hear from you. This is the Trading Justice podcast. We can have all kinds of different guests on here, all kinds of different topics. We would love recommendations.
Well, I'll tell you just off that, just to kind of plug a couple upcoming podcasts. Dean Beckett, he's one of my students. He's going to be joining us tomorrow on the podcast. And he's going to talk about his journey as a trader, the ups and downs of learning how to trade, giving people a perspective. Because Dean's an awesome trader. He's an aggressive trader. He's an awesome individual, and he's a great options-based trader. So we're going to bring Dean on. I got a real estate guy. You'll like this. In a week from now, Tim, Jeremy Reese teaches people how to invest in real estate and get cash flowing in that side of the quadrant. So Jeremy's going to come on and talk to us about the benefits of real estate investing, the types of strategies you can invest in real estate, and kind of his journey as a real estate investor as well. And that's something you and I haven't done. We're primarily stock options, currency, futures traders. But I'll tell you right now, I've always been interested in real estate. In the back of my mind, just always been just fascinated with what those real estate people can do. So Jeremy's going to be coming on, and honestly, throughout many of the podcasts, we're going to have so many different guests from different aspects of the financial industry to help you guys, navigate the choppy waters of the financial industry. And some days like today, Tim and I are just going to get on and we're going to talk, because honestly, nothing happened in the market today. So I really don't have that much to say about trading.
Well, I mean, I was interested in Apple's jump. Maybe
Apple did have a good jump. Apple did have a good jump. Talk to me about, because we've been very bullish on Apple for a while now in terms of its movement to the upside. And after the split was announced about, what was it, about 3 weeks ago now? After the split happened, Apple was a little overextended, and I remember saying, wait for it to retrace a little bit, and then Apple will start going back up. And Apple found a support level right around $90, which was where I felt Apple was going to retrace into. Now it broke out at $95. It closed today at $95.97. Apple had some hiring news today. They also they also have some new product lines, which, oh my goodness, it's only been 7 years, Apple. Thank you for to not ripping us off for another iPhone. But that's positive news. It jumped up on strong volume. 56 million shares traded today, broke out at $95. Where do you see Apple with the breakout today? Where do you see Apple going in the future?
Well, I think over time it goes higher. If save a market severe correction.
Yeah.
Everything
can
changes
we put that
when the market
Yeah, I was going to say, can we put that disclaimer on literally everything?
Every stock out there.
Yes.
But I think Apple moves higher over time. I'm still bullish on the stock. I'm still bullish on the company. In the newsletter that you referenced, Matt, which I recommend everybody go read. You can go check it out. We're putting the newsletters out there just for everybody to read for the next month. We're going to make it that you have to sign up for the website after a month to get them. But this one is out there for free. I talk about the tech sector and the financial sector. Stocks like Apple, I'm going to be paying particularly close attention to as we go through earnings season. Mm-hmm. And one of the major reasons is that I still believe those tech companies have room for growth. And I heard a guy from the Wharton School of Business talk about this who used to work for Microsoft. He was one on their board of directors. Can't remember his name. But he said, listen, every one of you, just think about how much better your phone is from 10 years ago till today.
It's unreal. It's literally unreal how technology has increased over the last decade.
Exponentially, right?
Oh, yeah.
Same thing. Mathematical algorithms, the ability to create code, the efficiency of these companies. That's why they're flush with cash, Matt. They're able to create profit for cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. I don't think technology's done growing. I really don't.
It's never going to be done growing or expanding.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of, are they priced at a certain level to short-term to justify its current price, its earnings. And so that's why I'm looking forward to this coming earnings season. We're going to do a podcast later on this week about how to trade earnings in terms of volatility and whatnot. But I'll tell you right now, I'm interested in this because the projections, the guidance for what we've been seeing has been decreasing over time, and with the marketplace, at all-time highs, basically, right? At the marketplace at all-time highs, with the projections decreasing. I think the S&P 500 companies, the Dow companies, the NASDAQ 100 companies, I think they got to overwhelm in this earnings season, Tim. I really do, because of where the market is. If the market was already corrected, I would not have that opinion. But with the market at all-time highs, I think they got to overwhelm the projections. I don't think they can come in at projection and continue to move the market up. I think people like Apple and the Teslas of the world, the Googles, the Pricelines, the CMGs, the Alcoas, the financial sectors, the S&P 500 companies, the Dow companies, and the NASDAQ 100 companies, those companies have to overwhelm their investors, or I think we're going to start to see a little bit of a sell-off.
You guys have been listening to the Trading Justice podcast. Check us out on Facebook. We will start doing Twitter a little bit more. We're going to try to do all the social network stuff. Facebook is our primary social network right now, and you can always locate us on tradingjustice.com. Matt, I would love to have a podcast on earnings season. Maybe we can do it later in the week.
I'm thinking Thursday night. I'll be sitting down in a hotel in Brooklyn, New York, Tim, teaching an amazing group how to trade stock and options and currencies. I think that'll be a great time. So tomorrow we'll do Dean Beckett will join us. On Thursday we will do a podcast on trading earnings, and then we will do a podcast early on next week on real estate investing, and we're still going to be doing a podcast on high frequency trading systems coming up very, very soon, as well as many other topics. If there is a topic or some questions you guys would like to answer, hit us up on Facebook, hit us up on at the Trading Justice website, tradejustice.com, and we'll certainly tackle any concepts, any strategies, any discussions you guys want, because we're just the voice, you're the demand, and we're willing to appease anybody. For our Trading Justice, Matt Justice, Tim Justice. Tim, say goodbye.
Peace out. See you guys.
Later, everybody.
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 See you guys.
You've been listening to the Trading Justice podcast. If you've enjoyed yourself and think that the conversations and topics we've covered are important, help spread the word. Give us your feedback. 5 stars on iTunes, like us on Facebook, and follow us on Twitter. The Trading Justice podcast is proudly sponsored by TackleTrading.com. Get off the sidelines and get in the game.